Hello, Quinn, and welcome to my YouTube channel. How did the Jehovah's Witnesses come into your life? If you want to share your story about that with us.
Yes, and thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate this opportunity to tell my story on your platform. So, my story is quite interesting. It goes back to when I was a kid. Uh, I get the ages mixed up, but probably around like I might have been around 10 or 11 that my mom started studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and my dad never wanted anything to do with it. And he was abusive and an alcoholic and stuff like that. So we didn't have a very good upbringing. And I think that my mom's background made the religion more appealing because I think that the message that Jehovah's Witnesses preach, it's designed to kind of attract those who are really not happy and that are looking for something outside of themselves. So I think because of the kind of toxic environment that we had and abuse that was going on that was really appealing to my mom to know that there would be a paradise and all the things that witnesses believe. So she started studying, and my brother is 3 years older than I am. So she would make me and my brother go to the Kingdom Hall, and we didn't want to go, but she felt that that it was the truth, so she thought we really should be there. So me and my brother would go to the Kingdom Hall, and what I remembered was that back then it was very, I think, difficult for a kid. This was back in the early 90s, I believe, because the Watchtower, from what I remember, was just black and white. There's no pictures, like there's nothing appealing about it. It was just very, very boring. So I remember like I always hated going to the Kingdom Hall. And I had this fear that my friends would make fun of me if they ever see me leaving my house like with a suit and Bible on. So I was always kind of like afraid and nervous about it. Um, but I believed it though. That's the thing. So I remember the Revelation book, specifically that book, and the pictures in it. I always felt the pictures were a little disturbing, like the one with Babylon the Great and the beast with all the heads. Like that never really seemed godly to me. Like I don't know that something about it just never seemed right. But that book scared me. So I had that fear of like the fear of Jehovah back as a kid. So I always had in the back of my head that, well, this is the truth, and if I don't become a Jehovah's Witness, I'm going to die on Armageddon. So I believe that, but I just found the meetings to be extremely boring. So after my mom got baptized, and I believe she got baptized in 93, just to give a time frame. So she started to struggle right after she got baptized. Things got really, really tough for her. And in the witness world, they say, oh, well, it's just because Satan is mad that everything is going wrong. So it's okay. It's okay. Your life is messed up because Satan's just mad. So that's kind of the belief. Like, oh, well, Satan's after us now. So it got to the point where she really just started to struggle and went through a lot of rough times. So she finally said to me, my brother, she said, well, I'm not going to make you guys go to the King Mall. If you want to come, you can come, but I'm not going to make you go because for her, just getting herself there became a struggle. So she said, well, I'm not going to make you guys go. So me and my brother both, we didn't want to go. We were so happy to find out, oh, good, we don't have to go anymore. So we immediately stopped going. But what happened, and this is just why I think that this religion, there is a lot of brainwashing involved because I never got baptized back then, and I never really paid attention at the meetings, but those key points stood out and brainwashed me that God is going to kill everybody who's not a Jehovah's Witness, and only Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be saved. So I lived with that fear as a teenager and as a young adult. So I've always thought in the back of my head, well, God's going to destroy everybody. And one of the things that just made me think that the witnesses had the so-called truth is because their position on holidays. Um, the only one that I really understood was Halloween, because Halloween does seem to have some dark stuff connected to it. I'm not even saying that it's wrong to celebrate it, but I noticed that Jehovah's Witnesses would say, "Oh, Halloween is connected to dark stuff." So, the friends that I had that were like in other religions, they would just celebrate Halloween and they had no idea what the roots were. They didn't care. They were just like, "Oh, it's fun for everybody." So that type of training that I got when I was going to the Kingdom Hall, it kind of convinced me, well, witnesses must have the truth because they're the only ones that know why they don't celebrate certain holidays. So it just things like that that made me think that it was the so-called truth. So fast forward to about when I was 30, like 31 years old. I had an experience where I reached a low point in my life where I felt I didn't want to live anymore. And just a lot of bad things happened. My car at the time had got repossessed, and that led to me losing my job at the time. And then I was in a toxic relationship, um, and that had ended. So I just broke up with my girlfriend, and I was in one of those states where I just felt like, yeah, I just wasn't happy. Um, and even though I wasn't a baptized Jehovah's Witness, the social awkwardness of witnesses stuck with me. So I still always felt out of place because of that training when I was younger, and just the awkwardness of, we can't salute the flag and those other things that come up. So I was always kind of like a little bit on a socially awkward side. Um, so I just felt that like I really didn't know the meaning of life. And when I reached this point where I wasn't happy, those programs from when I was a child of well, we're never going to be happy because this world is not meant to be happy. It's only after Jehovah brings in Armageddon will we be happy. So that stuff started to come back to me, and I thought, well, that's why I'm unhappy because I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, and God's going to kill everybody anyway. So at that low point, I decided to reach back out to Jehovah's Witnesses because I did still kind of believe it was the so-called truth. Um, so ended up calling the Kingdom Hall as an adult and basically said like, yeah, I want a Bible study because I was raised as Jehovah's Witness, and I just, I want to get back into it. Um so to kind of fast forward a little bit, I ended up having a Bible study as an adult, and got baptized. And the first thing that happened that kind of woke me up, I just want to say too, there's a couple things that happened when I was younger that I did question. Like I questioned the story of dinosaurs because I felt like the explanation of dinosaurs that Jehovah's Witnesses gave just didn't make any sense. Um, and I remember when I asked my mom about dinosaurs, what she had said, and it could have been from the platform that maybe another elder had said this or something. Like she got it from somewhere, but back then in the 90s, what my mom said, what she was told is that dinosaurs are not real, that it's just Satan. Satan made up the dinosaur fossils to discredit the Bible. Like that's what she said, and she got it from somebody. Um and I just wasn't buying it even as a kid. Like I'm like, I know Satan's powerful, but I mean, did Satan really like create these dinosaur fossils and dig them under the ground? Like just like it seemed a little far-fetched. So there's always little things that I wasn't quite 100% about the Bible, but so those things are always in the back of my head. But anyway, so after I got baptized, the first thing that happened that made me really question a religion was I had this experience where my father at the time, he was very like psychologically abusive and things like that. So when I got baptized, he really wasn't happy because like at that point I was really happy. I was baptized. I'm on the road to everlasting life, I thought. So my father, who's not a Jehovah's Witness, had called the Kingdom Hall, and he told the elders, he said, I just want to let you know, my son Quinn, who just got baptized, yeah, he's really fake, and he doesn't really love Jehovah and all this stuff, and he's just putting on an act like, he's a bad person. Like he just talked all this trash, like to kind of sabotage me. So at the point the elders had told me, like, yeah, your father called and said all these things about you. So I tried to explain, I'm like, oh, my dad's a toxic person and he's just trying to make trouble. So the elders were like, "Oh, but your dad says he just wants to have peace and he wants to have a sit down." So I'm like, "Oh no, absolutely not." I'm like, "I'm not like he just causing trouble. Don't even waste your time with it. Like forget about it." But the elders were persistent with it. Like, well, we really think, that we should sit down and talk to your dad. So I said, okay. So at this point, I'm believing, well, what the elders say is from Jehovah. So maybe this is the direction that Jehovah wants me to go in because everything you believe everything the elders do, you're kind of trained to believe that it's from Jehovah. So I'm like, well, Jehovah wants me to sit down with my father and the elders. So what happened was we had this sit down with my father, who's not a Jehovah's Witness, and so my father knows how to push my buttons. So he was just like making up lies. I mean, I don't want to overuse the word narcissistic, but a lot of people know that term when dealing with a narcissist. So that's the type of personality my father has. So he was just telling like outrageous like just crazy stuff, and it was causing me to have an emotional reaction. So as he's telling the elders these lies in front of me, I'm like standing up and pointing at him and saying, you're a liar, you're lying, you're making that up. And right when I did that, then my dad says, "You see, I told you he's just a disrespectful person. You see how angry he is." So he set me up in front of them. So I look like the crazy person because I'm getting all emotional and I'm calling him a liar. And then the elders are like, "Well, you're disrespecting your father." And then they show me a scripture what the Bible says about honoring your parents. Um, so anyway, after that experience, that was the first thing that kind of like shook me a little bit. And this is right after I got baptized because I'm like, Jehovah knows my father's a narcissist. He sees what my father's trying to do. Like, why are the elders taking his side? And it didn't make any sense. And my father's not even a witness. So like, why would they take the word over a non-witness and I'm a witness? And why is Jehovah not enlightening them? And one of the elders at that meeting was supposedly of the anointed. So he took of the emblem. So people who do that have like a special status in the congregation. So the fact that this so-called anointed brother was there, um, everyone kind of just took those two elders' word for what happened. I was the one that was problematic, and my father was like more of the peaceful person, and I was just a disrespectful child. So like when I tried to talk to other elders about how that whole thing went down, they just sided with those other two elders. I think because one of them was supposedly of the anointed, so that's just how it works. Like, he's speaking directly for God in a sense. Um, so at that point, I had realized for myself that okay, not everything that the elders say and do is from Jehovah. Because I'm like Jehovah sees the whole situation. Um, but I bring that out because that was important to me, like not being so brainwashed and waking up. Because I always known from that incident that not everything the elders say and do is from Jehovah. So fast forward to uh the releasing of the new Bible. So that was the second time I started to wake up because the Bible came out in 2013, the gray one, and I got baptized in 2012. So I was like so excited to go out in service and I was, memorizing the scriptures and everything. And I loved the New World Translation that I was using. So when they changed that, I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, why are they changing the Bible? Like I just felt like it's the Bible. How often does it need to be changed? And when I started looking over some of the changes, I had realized that they were clearly adding things that were unjustifiable. Like they were adding things. And one thing they said too is they said, "Oh yeah, we added the name Jehovah in so many more times because it belongs there." And I'm thinking, well, if you're not supposed to add or take anything away from the Bible, you can't just add something because you think it belongs there. Like you have to just go with the original translation, not because you think it should be there. And so just a lot of like when you look at the new Bible and compare it, or back in 2013, there's a lot of things where they were just adding things, and I was very uncomfortable with that translation. Um, so then fast forward, I ended up I found a wife in the organization, and we were pioneering together. I was a ministerial servant, I was giving public talks, and I was starting to do a lot of things that the elders were doing. I was going on shepherding calls. They were training me to conduct the meetings during the Tuesday night meeting. And I was one of those brothers where every time the CEO would come, people would say, "Oh, maybe Quinn's going to get appointed this time as an elder." Like I was one of those people where they thought, "Oh, any minute now you're going to be an elder," and that's what I wanted because I thought that's all we're good for. All that we're good for is these titles that we get in this religion. So I thought I'm on the fast track to real happiness, serving the creator of the universe. Um, but and I won't go into all the different things that happened, but one of the main things that happened was just the way that they were pushing uh the medical advice during the pandemic. Um, and there was this one governing body update where they were really like trying to manipulate people to do like the way they were saying it. They're like, if you guys care about life, um, then you'll trust us. And you know, Jehovah would never allow the Bethel family to do something dangerous. So like they were like getting to the point where they were really, really pushing this on people. Um, and me and my wife at the time, we both were apprehensive about it. Um, so she had a job in a hospital where she really didn't want to take it, but her job was threatening her, basically saying that if you don't do this by September 1st or something, you're going to lose your job. So we talked about it, and I said, well, we can afford to live just off of my income. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. We'll survive. But then when the governing body came out with one of those updates, they were so forceful. Then she said, well, Jehovah's telling me to do it. So she went and did it just because she really felt that they're speaking for Jehovah. Um, so after she went and did it, she came home crying about it. And she was like so like disturbed and crying because like inside she really didn't want to do it, but it was like a conflict because I think like for those to understand like the term higher self, I feel like her higher self or whatever was kind of maybe saying, don't, this is not for you. But she was fighting against her own flesh because the governing body said to do it. So she did it, but then she was crying. And that was one of the things that woke me up because I just felt like, is this religion really from God? Um, that and some other things. So I really started to kind of just question at that point. But then what happened was the brainwashing was still there that said, well, you can't research things. Because so when I started to get curious, I'm like, is this really the truth? But then like, oh no, that's apostate stuff. You can't look, you can't research. And I started to think like, well, if they're not hiding anything, apostates can't be that powerful. If we're getting spiritual food from God, the creator of the universe, then how is some so-called apostate on YouTube gonna threaten the truth from Jehovah? Like I never understood that. Like if it just lies, then why are we so afraid? So I started to get more curious, like, because I kind of just felt like I didn't really trust the organization, the way they were pushing the medical stuff. And then I start to think about other things. And but then I'm like, oh no, but I can't look because it's apostate. Um, but what eventually happened is I got more and more curious about like, well, what is out there? Why are they so afraid of us looking? Like I started to kind of open up more and start to really think like, what does these so-called apostates have that they're so afraid of? Um, so eventually it got to the point where I was watching a video that was unrelated to anything Jehovah's Witness. And it was this couple, and they were talking, I think they're talking about the Mandela effect, something I started to look into. And so it had nothing to do with religion stuff. And the girl in the video, she had said, oh, well, check out my channel, like just talking to the people watching her channel, check my stuff out. So I said, okay, let me check her channel out and see what's on her channel. And when I started scrolling down her channel, I seen this video that said uh ex-JW. And it was her interviewing her father, and it was talking about like ex-JW. So I'm like, oh wow. And it's like I didn't look for it, it just popped up. So I was normally too afraid to do so-called like apostate type research. But when that video popped up and I wasn't looking for it, I just had this strong intuitive feeling like it's okay if I watch this because I'm not looking for it. It just popped up. I just felt this strong intuitive feeling to just watch this video. So I watched this video, and one thing that this XJW was talking about was 1975. And I never heard the real version of 1975. I only heard the witnesses distorted version of it when they tried to say, "Oh, it never happened. We never said that." People were just getting too excited. So this guy who lived through it, he was a witness when it happened. When he explained what really happened, it really woke me up, and it made sense. The whole thing made sense. So after I started watching that video, that's when I really started to think like we do have the right to question things. So I'm like, I'm going to start doing research. I just want to make sure if this really is the truth, then there's nothing that I should find that will draw me away from Jehovah, right? If it's all lies, but I'm like, I need to see this stuff for myself. But the brainwashing then was still fighting with me because while at this point I'm ready to start looking, I'm still having that in the back of my head. Oh, Jehovah's gonna kill me. Like an apostate is like Judas. I'm Judas Iscariot if I look at stuff, right? So I still had that feeling of like, but Jehovah's watching me. He's I'm gonna die in Armageddon. So I still struggled with that. But then for some reason the scripture came to me where and it's one that Jehovah's Witnesses use. They use the scripture about how it's something like those in Thessalonia, um, or Paul was commending those in Thessalonia because, or the Bereans, I think that's what it was. Yeah, Paul was commending the Bereans because he said that in their version of the Bible it says they carefully examine the scriptures to see whether or not those things were true. I'm not sure how it's worded in a regular Bible, but in their Bible, that's how they word it. So that scripture, for some reason, kept popping up. So then I thought, why is that recorded in the Bible? It's recorded in the Bible because Paul is basically saying those were to be commended, the ones that didn't just believe what Paul was saying, but the ones that they carefully examined the scriptures to see if it was true. So that kept popping up in my head, and I finally got it, and I said, if God is real, then he would be happy that I want to research to make sure that I'm not being misled, right? I just want to serve God. So why am I not allowed to examine these things to carefully see if they're true? Um, and the Bereans, I think it was, they were carefully examining the actual Bible. I'm trying to examine just a Watchtower publication, not even the Bible. So how is it so wrong that I can't even examine these publications that aren't even the Bible? Um, so that's when I said, you know what? I'm a grown man. I can research. If this really is the truth, then all I'm going to find is lies and everything's going to be backed up. So I finally just decided I'm going to research everything and find out for myself if this is the truth or it's not. And to my surprise, that I can honestly say 90% of everything that I started to find out were all facts. And a lot of the facts is Jehovah's Witness own material, and their own actions. Like I was thinking like apostates are just making up this crazy stuff, but it's like everything is facts and it's stuff that you can see the organization just tries to keep quiet or cover up. Um, and one big thing for me was the Royal Australia Commission, where the governing body member under oath basically said, "Oh no, we don't really believe we're the only like ones that God is using." I can't remember exactly how he said it, but what he said is something that we would get called an apostate for saying that. If we were in the kingdom hall and we said, "Oh, the governing body, God's not only using them," like you'd be an apostate for that. So when he said that under oath, that was a big one for me. Um, and then I'm thinking, why haven't I heard about this? This is not apostate stuff. This is mainstream news. And that led me to other things such as the United Nations and things that like are just facts. Like none of it is lies. These are facts. And then what really woke me up was that when it got to the point where I felt I could start like asking questions. Because first it was like I'm doing it in secret, right? Like so um when my wife was not home, I'd be on my phone. Like I felt like I was doing something wrong, like looking at this stuff behind her back. Um, and this is one thing I just want to throw in here too. Like I came across your channel, and your channel helped me out with a lot of interviews you've done with people where couples like had to separate, and one couple wakes up before the other couple. So like some of those interviews helped me kind of prepare myself for like, okay, if this goes sour with my wife, at least I can expect this is probably how it's gonna go. But when it finally got to the point where I felt okay, I have a right to ask these questions about like the United Nations and things like that. Um, so I talked to this one Jehovah's Witness, even before my wife. There was this one older woman who was kind of like I would say a spiritual mom to me. So I felt I could trust her. So even before I talked to my wife, I went to this older woman, and one of the things I mentioned to her was the United Nations. And as soon as I started to question that, she got like really upset, and like her eyes got big, and she was like, that's dangerous. You shouldn't be looking at that. And I'm like, well, I'm just asking questions. And I'm like, because I went on the United Nations website and the information, it's factual information. It's documented. So I'm trying to explain to her, like, this is not apostate stuff. Look, the Watchtower is an NGO of the United Nations. It's right here on the UnitedNations.com. And she was just like, well, where did you hear that from? And I'm like, it doesn't really matter where I heard that from. And what she was getting at is it was probably like a so-called apostate video that led me to it, which it was, but where it came from is irrelevant. What's irrelevant is it true or not? That's the point. But she like flipped out, and then she was already calling me an apostate just for asking. And I was just asking about like, why were we part of the United Nations? Why wasn't I told about this? Didn't we say that the United Nations was part of like the wild beast and Satan system of things? Like, didn't the Revelation book talk about the United Nations as being controlled by Satan? So like, and we're not supposed to be no part of the government. So like, why like, and I realized I can't even ask a question. So then when I went to approach my wife finally, she acted in the same way. As soon as I started to bring these questions up, like her eyes got big, her voice changed. She's like, "That's dangerous." And then I talked to another person, and a brother in the congregation who I also know that I can trust, and he acted the same way. And that's when I started to realize, like, oh my God, we really were brainwashed because three people act the exact same way. It's like a trigger goes off, and I'm like, I'm just asking a question. Like, why can't I ask a question? We're told to give our life for this organization. We're told that if we need blood, we're supposed to sit there and die because the governing body's interpretation of these scriptures that they claim is from Jehovah. So we're expected to die, but I can't even ask what I'm dying for. I can't even ask these things that are part of religion. And the more that I asked, people just got angry, and like I could see that like we really are in a cult. I could see it by people's reactions. And like I said before, 90% of everything I looked up was factual information. I didn't find any apostate lies. It's just apostate to bring to light facts about the organization. Um, so that's kind of like the gist of everything. And so when I left the organization, it had got to the point where I had stopped going to the meetings and I was done with the meetings, but my wife at the time thought I was still going to go to the memorial. And when I even researched like some of the dark roots of the JW Memorial, how like um they're rejecting the memorial, like they want everybody to touch the emblems, like to reject the Christ. I mean, that's just some of the information that's out there. And when I started to like research, like, well, I mean, none of that is scriptural. Like Jesus didn't say anything about um invite the whole town and everybody touch the emblems, but don't take it. He just told his disciples, drink it. It means my blood and me. So this whole JW way of doing things, it's like once I start to question like the roots of it, and I really felt like I didn't believe it was the truth anymore. I told my wife, and I kind of felt bad about it, but I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't go to Moria with you. I just can't go. Um, and then a month after that, that's when I told her, like, I'm writing a letter of disassociation. I'm like, I do not think, I'm like, if I can't get these questions answered, and I told her too, I said, hey, if you can find someone to answer these questions, I'll be happy to stay. But the way the people are, if I can't even ask these questions, then to me, they're covering something up. And every time I try to talk to her, she would just start like getting really, really like angry with me. And we had a pretty peaceful marriage in general. It was a peaceful marriage. It was a good JW standard marriage. Like we were pioneering together. I was a ministerial servant. We were both working part-time, devoting all of our time to the organization. Like, we were living the JW life and we had a generally peaceful life. But once I started to question things, that peace was interrupted. Like she was so angry. I've never heard her yell in my life until I started questioning the governing body, and she's yelling at me defending them. And so I finally just like I wrote my disassociation letter. Oh, one more thing that happened was when I told her I was writing the letter as a desperate attempt to try to get me to stay, she asked this elder and his wife to come talk to me. A couple we were personal friends with, um, like off the record, because if the elders in general knew what I was questioning, I would have got kicked out as an apostate. So she got this elder and his wife to come talk to me, like, off record. Um, and I said, "Sure, I'll talk to them as long as they listen to what I have to say." So this elder and his wife comes over, and one of the things I brought up was the Henrietta Trust Fund, where it's a trust fund that, the it's not under the Watchtower name, but the money is being paid to Watchtower. It's kind of like a secret way they're investing money in all these things they claim Jehovah hates. But I found the tax documents; they're public record because it's because they're a nonprofit organization. Like their tax information, like it's public. You can find this. And when I found the tax documents, it showed all these stocks that they have money in, but it showed that the money was being paid to Watchtower, even though it's under Henrietta Trust Fund. But anyway, so that was one of the things I brought up to this elder. Because I'm like, why are we why are they investing in the things they claim Jehovah hates? Like they have military companies on there they're investing in, they got tobacco companies, like all the stuff that we're told Jehovah's against. And as soon as I brought it up, the elder's like, "Oh, it's an apostate lie." But I'm like, "Well, here's the document." He wouldn't even look at it. And I'm like, "Well, how can you say it's a lie if you don't look at it?" He's like, "I don't need to look at that apostate stuff." And he walked out and left. We were on our back porch. He just walked away and left. And then the wife started going off on me like my wife has. So like, I'm like, "Oh my God, like I really can't question these things. This elder is saying that the Henrietta Trust is a lie." And I'm saying, "Look, I have it here right here. I printed it out." And he wouldn't even look at it. So after that, that was it. I said, I'm writing my letter. Um, so I wrote my disassociation letter. And one thing I did is because, when you disassociate, you get the same announcement as if you were disfellowshipped. All that they'll say is this person is no longer Jehovah's Witness. So I'm like, I already know I'm going to get slandered. People are going to gossip. People are going to assume I got this fellowship or got kicked out. So I want to make sure that like people knew why I was leaving. I'm not being kicked out. I'm not disfellowshipped. So what I did was I took my disassociation letter, but instead of giving it to the elders, I used a group email that I was part of because nowadays witnesses do everything electronically. So the congregation sends out all these like group emails with everybody's email attached to it. So I picked out certain people's emails on this group email and I just sent it out to random people in the congregation, showing like I'm disassociating and this is why. And I sent it out to publishers first in the congregation. And I made the elders wait last. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to make sure that people are going to gossip anyway, but I want to make sure that the congregation knew I'm walking away because I believe this is a false religion, not because I'm being kicked out. I'm voluntarily leaving. So after I sent it out through email to other people in the congregation, I then mailed a physical copy to the elders. Um, and so that was my official leaving. And then where things got interesting is that one day I was working because I was working night shift at the time, and I got a text message from my wife or ex-wife that said, "I moved out. I'll be in touch later during the week." It's just very, very cold. A text message. And I'm at work third shift. When I finally get home in the morning, she's gone. And I tried to get her to come talk to me in person. She would not talk to me in person. And she ended up filing legal separation. And the reason she filed legal separation is because Jehovah's Witnesses believe you can't divorce unless, there's adultery. But they do say that um, if you're in spiritual endangerment, which is what they call apostasy, then they say you can separate. So she used that, and I think the congregation encouraged her to do it because it's not really like her to leave the way she did. So I'm pretty sure she was being coached on how to leave, but like that's what she did it on the basis of like I'm a so-called apostate now. And at that point, I wasn't on YouTube, I wasn't doing anything. And at that point, I was literally just questioning things. At that point, I was still in the phase of I'm asking questions and no one could answer my questions. Um, so she ended up filing separation, and I ended up countering that with divorce because I'm like, well, I'm not going to play this game. Like, she'll stay stuck in that situation because the witnesses will tell her, well, you're not free, you're not scripturally free to remarry. But I'm like, I'm not going to play this game, of like, okay, I'm stuck, or I have to wait until she sleeps with someone or I'm just gonna file a divorce because I don't believe the JW rules anyway. So I just countered her legal separation with divorce. Um and in the state of Connecticut, which I was currently in at that point, there's no wait period with divorce, like no wait period at all. So she filed separation in September and I countered it also in September, and then October we're officially divorced, just like that. Um, so that's pretty much the basic story of the Jehovah's Witness religion, my dealings with them, that their actions just cause me to start to question things. And once I start to question things, I could see it's a cult. And any organization, you're not allowed to question things, but at the same time, they expect you to give their life. Like you need to die and not accept a blood transfusion because we claim to be speaking for God. But if you question just to make sure that you're on the right page, you get kicked out for that. Like that's definitely a cult. If they have nothing to hide, you should be able to question as much as you want to question. And I truly believe that um if God requires that you must have a religion to serve him through, then God would be okay with you questioning to make sure you got the right religion. Um and that's kind of like my running with the witnesses.
Wow, Quinn, thank you so much for sharing your story and your abrupt marriage ending after almost a decade.
Oh no, that was just last October.
How long were you married for? That's what I'm.
Sorry. Only 6 years, so it could have been worse, but still 6 years is a good amount of time.
Yeah, that's a very long
Mhm.
time. And so you just ended it recently. Have you guys talked to each other after the divorce became final?
No, it got ugly after that because there was some other stuff that happened. So we agreed when we got divorced that I would take a particular vehicle and she would take the other vehicle. Um, but both vehicles happened to be in her name because when we went to finance a car, her credit was higher than mine, so we financed a car in her name just because we got a better rate on it. Um, so when we divorced, that particular vehicle was granted to me, and I also needed it because I had traveled further for work than she did. So anyway, she was supposed to sign that car over to me. And this is just something that kind of just shows that witnesses aren't as nice as people think. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of nice people in there, but a lot of it is fake. Where like, so what happened was, um, when we went to court, she had both titles to both vehicles. So we agreed that she had to sign the other one over to me because it was going to be mine. So she had the titles with her. So, um, one thing she did, and I just have to backtrack a little bit to understand the whole setting, is that when she left in the middle of the night, she also took all the savings. She basically stole the savings from me because what happened was she did all the finances because she was just better with numbers than I was. So I would just go to work, bring home the paycheck. I let her do all the financial stuff. So the savings account, I was not on the savings account. I never needed to be. And when you're witness, you don't think you're ever getting divorced. So I was never really concerned what my name has to be on a savings account. I never really thought about it. So when she left and left with the savings account, but I didn't have access to it. So I had told her, I said, well, and it wasn't that much money in there. It was like maybe $8,000 in there, but that's still $8,000. So I said, well, if anything, I want 4,000. But she wouldn't communicate anything with me. So when we went to court, one of the things I complained about, is I said, well, she took all the savings. Like I have no access to the savings. So when she showed up in court, she only had like $2,000 in the savings. I'm like, how did you spend that much? I think all she did was she moved the money around. She probably gave the money to another witness to hold. So she came to court with a pay stub claiming, oh, there's only $2,000 in there, and she brought new clothes with it, like just stupid stuff. But I didn't fight it because I just wanted the whole thing to end. Um, so one of the things I said, well, I want the car with more value because I need to travel back and forth to work. And another reason why we agreed to that is because she did take all the savings and I was now stuck living paycheck to paycheck. So I'm like, I want the more expensive car. And then she also agreed to take on the bills that were in her name. Like we had a credit card debt, but the credit card was in her name only. So she agreed, like she'll just assume and pay that off. So we came to an agreement based on how things work. I still got screwed somewhat, because what she took in savings was a lot more than's owed on the credit card. But I just let it go because and again, I can't prove where she spent the money. There's nothing I can really do about it. Um, so anyway, after we came to this agreement, I had said, okay, well, let's sign the titles over to the vehicles now. And she didn't want to do it. I'm like, well, why not? You have the titles with you. Let's just sign it now because I want to be done with it. And for some reason, she didn't want to do it. So I asked the mediator that sits in before like we see the judge to try to like come to an agreement. I asked the mediator to said, well, um, can you make her sign it now because she has the paperwork with her now? That way we don't have to meet up later on. So then the mediator said, well, technically she's got at least 30 days. And the court just gives you at least 30 days when it comes to paperwork. So they couldn't make her do it. But I had a suspicion about that. I'm like, why would she want to make this difficult and have to meet up at a later time to sign the titles over when we're sitting in court and she's got the titles with her? So I was a little suspicious about it. Um, so long story short, she basically said she's not going to sign the van over to me unless I convince the landlord to let her out of the lease. Now I know it gets a little confusing, so I'll just try to explain it. Is that when she moved out, she left me in the house we were renting, but her name was on the lease too. So another thing is she left me to pay all the rent by myself, which I was okay with, but she wanted to technically be let out of the lease. So the court had told her that that I am agreeing to pay the rent because I'm going to continue living there. So I was okay with her leaving. But the court told her that we can't make the landlord break a lease. That's between you and the landlord. It's up for you to ask the landlord if he wants to let you out of the lease. But I was assuming responsibility for the apartment. Um, so then she said after she left court, she said, well, I'm not going to sign the car over to you unless you convince the landlord to let me out of the lease. So I tried to explain to her, I said, that's not the court order. The court already explained to you that's between you and the landlord. That has nothing to do with our divorce agreement. Or the divorce is already final and you have 30 days to sign the car over to me. So she tried to like blackmail me in that situation. So so then I went back to court and made a complaint and said, well, she's going back on her word. She's saying she's not going to sign the vehicle over to me. So the court says, well, do you want to file contempt? And I said, well, she's got 30 days. And they said, well, yeah, then you can't file contempt until after 30 days if she doesn't do it. So what happened was that on the she had until December 1st to do it. So and we got a divorce on October 20th. So she had technically more than 30 days. She had like 40 days. So we got divorced on October 20th and she had until December 1st to sign the car over to me. So on like November 26th or 27th, at the very last minute, I'm already thinking she's not going to do it and I got to take her back to court. I'm just in my living room relaxing and I hear this banging on the door. Like boom, 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 like the police are trying to kick down the door. I'm like who's that? And I'm thinking, I'm not expecting anybody, and I just got shunned from the Jehovah's Witness, so I have no friends, like nobody's coming here to see me, and I'm like, who's banging on a door like that? And boom, boom, boom. So I was even afraid to get up and look because I don't want them to see me peeking out the window, know that I'm home. So I'm like, let me just stay quiet and wait till whoever this is leaves. I wasn't expecting anybody. So whoever was banging, it was I could hear it was two people. After they banged on the front door, they went around the sides of the house. They started banging on the windows, and they were there for like 15 minutes. So I started to think like, does it have something to do with her family? Like I just started to think that. So then right after the banging stopped, then I got a text message from her that said, "Oh, I tried to stop by to give you the title." And it was just a text message. So I'm like, I'm not opening the door. Like, I don't trust that. Like, one, she was supposed to make arrangements with me. One thing that the judge told or that the mediator told her in court was that when she's ready to sign the paper over, call me to make arrangements to meet in person. She's not supposed to just show up, especially trying to kick the door down. So I'm like, I don't trust that. I'm like, I know there was at least two people because while someone was banging on the side of the house, someone was still on the front of the house banging up. And like I'm a man, I'm by myself. Like if I open the door, they could attack me and say that I put my hands on them or something like that. And I could, like they could set me up. So I'm like, I felt it was a setup. So I wrote her back and said, basically, don't just show up here banging like that. I'm like, you have to make arrangements with me. I'm like, if you want to make arrangements for like this day, let's meet tomorrow, but don't just show up the second time, banging and banging just like she did the first time. And then they took, I mean, this is crazy. Something you don't expect from Jehovah's Witnesses. So then they took the license plates off the car that was mine. And she said, oh, by the way, I canceled the registration. Well, she wasn't supposed to cancel the registration because she was supposed to give me the title so then I could transfer the registration. But she canceled the registration and took the plates off before I could even do anything. So now I can't drive the car because now she canceled the registration, like on purpose, before I even had the title in my hand. So she took the plates off the car. I couldn't even drive the car now. And she's banging. I figured out that it was her mom that she was with. It was her and her mom banging on the side of the house. They could have been a third person driving them around. I don't know. Um, so I basically said, okay, either you can meet me in the courthouse and sign the, give me the title with witnesses in the courthouse, or I'm going to file contempt against you. And that was the option I gave her. I'm like, I'm not going to open the door. I don't trust you. Let's meet at the courthouse where there's witnesses around. So she says, okay, fine. So then 2 days goes by. So this is like now November 30th or 29th, and she has only till the first December 1st to do it. So I'm thinking I'm going to go to the courthouse and see her in person with witnesses and finally get the paperwork to the car. Meanwhile, I can't drive because she took the plates off the car and canceled the registration. So then at the very last minute, she says, seeing how you're refusing to let me sign the paperwork to you, I'm going to mail it to you. And I'm like, I didn't refuse. All I said was, let's meet somewhere public where there's witnesses around. I didn't refuse anything. So it's like she's just playing games. So now she's saying she's going to mail the title. But if she's going to mail it, why don't just leave it in the mailbox when she was there to begin with, banging on the side of the house? If she's just going to mail it, so like, I think that they were trying to set me up. I don't know how, but I think they wanted me to open a door, and they were trying to do it in person to somehow set me up or do something. I don't know what. Um, but I finally ended up getting the paperwork mailed to me, but it was late, so I couldn't. I also couldn't register or insure in time because by the time that I got it, they had already canceled the registration. So like in Connecticut, you have to make an appointment with the DMV to do all that stuff. So by the time I got the title, I couldn't do anything with it until several weeks where I could finally get an appointment with the DMV to fix it. So I had to get a rental car, and that costs like $800 just to get a rental car to get around until I can get this stuff done. And it was just a whole bunch of headaches. So but I bring that out because there was no reason for any of that stuff to happen. And um I ended up filing contempt anyway because she did cost me a lot of, and I showed the judge like the text messages and everything. And when we went back to court, technically the loophole was that I did technically get the title before the first. Like by the time it was mailed, like when she mailed it on like the 31st, so I did get the title in the mail. So technically the loophole was that uh I did get it by the 30th, but the court did say that she does find that they're I forget the word she used, but they were being like malicious or something like that. The court did find that. And the court was asking, well, why did you take the plates off the car? And why didn't you let Quinn sign, or why didn't you give him the title when you guys were in court the first time? Like when you want to do it, then why, like, so the judge asked all the right questions, and then the judge also asked, why did she and her mom show up at my house without calling me first and all that stuff. But technically, I couldn't hold her in contempt because yeah, it was a big ugly mess. And honestly, what I think is just that when you leave this religion, they basically just they want to destroy your life. And when you walk away, I think they have like because they didn't kick me out. I walked away. And I think that her family just was like, let's just try to make his life hell and, screw him over. Wait to the last minute, cancel the registration so he doesn't have a car. Like I think they were just making trouble for me on purpose. Um, but yeah, so I have no contact with her anymore. After our last court date, like there's no more contact.
What a sad way to end a pretty peaceful 6-year marriage. And knowing the witnesses' emotions, you suppressed your emotions the whole time you're in the religion. So she probably had this fiery side to her the whole time that you never really saw, you never got a chance to be with, because we're just kind of robots in the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your story, especially the last little bit of detail about your details with your ex-wife. Is there anything that you feel like you left out in this interview that you'd like to add to it?
I would just like to add that life gets much better when you leave the religion, and they want to program you to make you think like, oh, if you leave, your life is gonna be no good, and you're gonna lose God's favor. And I'm just now starting to feel like I really have a good life now. I moved states, I moved to the West Coast. I got a really good job opportunity out here, and I met some people in the XJW community, and I was able to reconnect with some of my old friends that I had cut off when I became a Jehovah's Witness. And I look at it as I feel like I'm kind of glad I went through that experience. I feel like I've learned something through it. But for me personally, and this is just my personal where I'm at now, is I feel that a lot of times religion is used to control people. And I think that God, the creator, whatever you want to refer to it as, you don't need a religion to serve God or the creator. You can have a relationship with God and have spirituality without religion. And that's kind of like the journey I'm on now, is learning like true spirituality. And I feel that a lot of things that we were told are demonic are not demonic at all. Like even things such as crystals. I started collecting crystals. I think a lot of them have metaphysical properties, and there's nothing demonic about it. I mean, they're beautiful. The earth makes crystals, like it's a natural process. And I just find like a lot of things religion has told us are bad. Like they're just lying to control people. Like one thing I do too is I have started practicing yoga, and I feel very good when I practice yoga. I can feel that connection like with the universe. And I'm thinking that's why religion demonizes that stuff, because they don't want people to find contentment without religion, or to find that connection with God or universe without a religion. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm learning a lot of things, like again, yoga, crystals, things like that. And I'm still learning. And I just want to say that for anyone that's out there who's who's waking up to this religion, that life is better and it does get better, and don't let religion control you. God does not need a religion to control you.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I actually just recently made a video about having a connection with God outside of religion. So you're speaking to the choir here. And as far as yoga, it's like they want us to be so disconnected from our bodies, even not even like the whole spiritual aspects. They just want us to be like numb from our ourselves. And yeah, just getting really curious about what that connection to a higher power looks like for each and every one of us is so important, and not to be tied down to what the religion makes you believe that you need to believe in. So thank you so much, Quinn, for sharing your story and being so vulnerable with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.